to the Nevada Patriot Podcast with Matt Sadler.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Nevada Patriot Podcast with Matt Sadler. This recording date is Wednesday, October 18th, 2023. As always, I want to thank you for tuning in to kwkiradio.com, Rumble, YouTube, and the NevadaPatriot.com. You'll catch the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. at kwkiradio.com and 97.7 FM in limited areas here in Pahrump. And like I said before, please consider changing your video viewing to a platform like Rumble if you can. Free speech brown shirts at other tech companies are still out in full force. It will get worse before it gets better, I promise you. My special guest today is new to the show, although you may be familiar with his name in the political realm. You may have heard of him before. He has run for office before, in the past election cycle in particular. And without further ado, let me welcome United States Senate candidate Barry Lindemann. Welcome to the show, Barry.
Hey, thanks for allowing me the time to get on here and speak with you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we finally got a chance to get this together. Sorry our plans have been delayed. I know we've been planning on doing this for some time, but scheduling conflicts between us. Yeah, glad we finally got it done. So why don't you give our listeners a little bit of a bio of yourself, if you wanted to, just as a little introduction for anybody in our market that may not be familiar with you.
Yeah, the quick bio is I grew up on a small ranch in north central Wyoming, right? So we raised cattle. It was working all day. Plus, the cattle during the summer are out doing their summer pasture, then you're haying and you're irrigating and everything. You get really involved with the environment. I used that to put myself through college. After that, I wound up in Denver, Colorado for about 15 years. I had 2 kids down there. Came to Las Vegas around 2000. At 2000, I think it was. Worked for an underground utility company, and when that got a little too hard because you tend to get older, you can't lift as much. I decided to go the finance route. I learned home financing for mortgages, and then after that, I just segued easily into commercial financing. And now I run they call me an asset manager for a commercial real estate portfolio, but since I've got all these tools, it's a little more than that. We put up some skilled nursing facilities, hospital-like facilities, multifamily facilities, or homes and things like that. And I can finance them. I can not only build them, but I can finance them. And I'm working with a bunch of tremendous people who are really skilled at what they do. So, and that's where I'm at here. And until I decided to get into politics. So we're putting the foot in the puddle right now.
Right. So yeah, piggybacking on that, what was probably, or what circumstances in particular kind of led you to throw your hat in the realm of politics as far as running for office?
Yeah, well, as you noted in 2022, since I've been here since 2000, I always went out to that lake in Hoover Dam, and it's dropped 200 feet since I've been out there. And you would think that some politician flying from D.C. to Las Vegas would look down and go, that's a problem, right? And that tends to be, for people who work in the real world, you tend to see problems coming and you try to solve them before they get to be bad. But none of our politicians ever have done that. So I got so angry that they weren't doing anything about the water, not just for the fact that the amount of water wasn't being held back in Hoover Dam, but the cataclysm that could follow if we go to Deadpool on the West Coast as far as electricity goes, that I just got angry enough to throw my hat in the ring. I would tell people, I go, it was like God grabbed me by my shoulders, stood me out of bed and said, you got to go do this. And so I went and threw my hat in the ring. I went through the whole process. Nobody helped me, used my own money. And I just wanted to get and tell and say to Adam Laxalt or Catherine Cortez Masto, you guys have got to pay attention to this. Even though she had been at some of the Senate subcommittee hearings for this, she did nothing. And I'm like, this is where you have to go do it. And I just couldn't believe, I still get furious about it right now because they haven't solved the problem. I just couldn't believe that nobody was really ringing the bell on this one. And so I wanted to get up and somehow work my way into some kind of debate so I could point my finger at her and go, will you please go and save Hoover Dam? Because as a regular voter, you never get to do that. Yeah. So I just wanted to get on the stage. And funny enough, when I was putting out my website and trying to talk to people, I was advised to go throw out all my other political ideas or perspectives, and I wrote them out there. And much to my surprise, I started getting people going. I got a guy from Illinois tell me once, hey, I like everything that you're thinking about, and we should implement it right now. And everybody who I talked to from the groups that I went and spoke with were like, we really like what you have to say. So I'm not saying that I thought I would win. I wanted to make an impact. I had votes from every single county in this state for me. I didn't have the money to go to every single county in this state, but people came and found me. And so after it was all over, I was thinking about it, and I thought, you know what? If people have that much faith in me, then I should have enough faith in the system and in the people that we can get me elected to go in there and start really behaving in the interest of the taxpayer, right? Mm-hmm. So I've honed my thoughts, and I've honed my what I want to say, my message. And I think it's something that could be a real winner for everybody if they just take some time to look at my website or give me a call or email me. So that's how I got into it. And I'm going to try to go beat everybody else right now. Luckily, it's early on.
Right. And after kind of reading a little bit about you and kind of going on social media, my assessment is that you seem to be kind of like myself, a small government guy that the government's probably exceeded its intended role. Our forefathers are probably, look at us right now and not recognize the country that they helped start. And oftentimes, we're looking for government, or at least a layperson, or maybe other people, maybe not so much us conservatives, but people are looking for the government for the solutions, when in fact, I think the government more often than not is the problem. Kind of as evidence what you're seeing about the water situation. I feel it too. I was born and raised in Las Vegas, so seeing that lake go from a period when I was younger to where where they needed to let some of that water out, it was so full, to where it is right now. It's, even though we've gained a tiny bit of ground, I think, as far as the water level, but it's compared to what it was, it's got a whole lake worth of water just missing out of that lake right now. And it is depressing. So what other avenues would you say, or practically speaking, or your battle plan where you're looking to affect some change at the United States Senate level? What other avenues are you looking to kind of make some progress, or what you see as being deficient, where you can kind of, if elected, you can get in there and make a difference?
Well, so overall, when I take the broad view of government, it just, first of all, they don't do anything for the taxpaying citizen. And I know that's a kind of a blanket statement, but I believe it's also true. I'm like you, right? I receive what their demands are. I don't see them thinking about how to make the taxpaying citizen wealthy, right? Or just even put a little more money in their pocket. And since I am in the finance game, and we receive a whole bunch of audits, you need to know how that works pretty well. And it's not a new idea, but I came up with this proposal that, since Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac basically insure all the mortgages on all the houses across the United States, that's kind of a blanket statement, right? The banks aren't really so much at risk with those things as much as the government is, that they can start, we can write into the Dodd-Frank Acts a policy where we need to start doing what's called a straight line mortgage. And a straight line mortgage allows you, in your mortgage payment, half that payment goes to interest and half that payment goes to principal. So you pay your loan down faster, right? It doesn't, if just for your viewers out there who might not be familiar with this, when you take a loan out on a house, say it's $200,000, and say your payment is $1,000 a month, for the first 21 years, roughly, you're paying $950 a month to interest, which goes to the bank, and $50 a month to your principal, which is what you keep inside your house's equity. Mm-hmm. I'm going to change that. I'm going to say, no, if it's $1,000 payment, the banks only get $500, and you get $500. So in year 15, you've paid down $100,000. The way it is now, you go to year 15 on a regular mortgage statement, and you've maybe got 10% equity in there, maybe, right? So this is a way to take wealth away from Wall Street without hurting it and putting it in our pockets so you can then grow your own personal wealth. You get 10 years into that thing, you're probably never going to miss a mortgage payment. You get 15 years into that thing, you might refinance and go start a business. It will do nothing but explode the economy. Yeah. So this is where we can use government. Right? And I kind of sit there and say,
how little they're paying their house down in the first 10 years.
Yeah, sure. People typically are unfamiliar with this. They have to they wait for the market to turn up to create equity. We're not waiting for that anymore. If you get that lift out of it, boom, you're going to be twice as wealthy. Mm-hmm. But your dollars, your money, they stay inside your property way more than what we do now. It's the banks are thieves on that level, and we've done nothing but bail out banks for the last 30 years. Yeah. Right. It's time they turn around and help us out. That's my whole point on that mortgage, for just an instance of what I'm thinking about.
That's actually a good point. I mean, I remember from the 2000, well, when the market kind of really slowed down, especially out here in Nevada, 2007-ish, around that time, right? Where everybody, even responsible mortgagors who maybe bought one home, they weren't getting like 10 of them at the same time as investments, but they're putting 20% down, and then their bailout was kind of non-existent. The biggest bailout they got was Chapter 7 bankruptcy. That was the best that they could hope for. And in the grand scheme of things, I agree. It's not really fair.
Yeah, it's time to make if policy is intended to work for the regular taxpaying citizen, it's time to really make that happen. And it's not done. It always seems it's done for Wall Street, or it's done for some other 501c3 groups or non-government organization. It's time to steer that back to, what are we doing? The first thing they should be asking is, how does this affect the taxpaying citizen, and does it help him? I mean, as far as even putting dollars in their pocket. Right. I said this just a year ago, and somebody I was talking on something else, and I made the comment, get sick and tired of just government take. And I said, because government creates inflation, it starts in Washington, D.C., it ends there. It doesn't exist anywhere else unless the government puts it out onto us through their bad policies. And I got sick of the bad policies. And I said, well, if government creates 8% inflation, why not at the end of the year take that 8% and offset your tax bracket with it? So if you're in a 22% tax bracket, you go down to a 14% tax bracket, because government doesn't get punished the way we do. Government makes bad policy, we get punished. Mm-hmm. And I'm tired of being punished by government. People should really be tired of that. And they sit there and they're like, oh, we have to raise interest rates, to cool down the government. And the thing is they never tell you that raising interest rates is designed to do one thing, and that's to unemploy people. You unemploy people, suppliers and manufacturers then have to lower their prices, which then brings it all back down. So basically, government starts a bad policy, and then they punish us when their bad policy doesn't, comes to fruition, I guess. And then they're like, oh, we should have done that. No, you shouldn't have. I mean, anybody can tell you that you shouldn't create inflation. So how do you go back immediately and then punish government for making bad policy? And I was thinking the other day, we don't punish government faster enough. We don't signal to them that they need to stop what they're doing and rethink. And if you take tax dollars away, and you can't say don't pay your taxes, everybody's got to pay their taxes. Yeah. But since inflation is thought about at a state level, one state may have 8% inflation. I think I heard Nevada had 15% at one point in time. And you get to the end of the year, and that state, say it's Nevada, goes, the inflation for us this year was 15%. And you get me in there, and I put up a policy where I don't know why we're paying for government's mistakes. Here, we're going to punish government. So you're going to do your taxes, you're going to do them right, and then at the end, you're going to type in what your inflation rate is for your state. It's going to subtract it from your bracket, and then you're going to pay the balance on whatever your income is. It sounds a little far-fetched, but I don't mind doing this example lesson to show you that I'm thinking about the tax-paying citizen. Right. As far as government goes, I don't care if they ever get paid, right? But we got to come back to where people are driving the engine in this economy.
Mm-hmm.
The taxpaying citizen is the golden goose. The taxpaying citizen is the mule that's pulling all the gold out of the mine. Government's more than happy to go and steal it all from us. But we need to start signaling government in some way, shape, or form, hey, you can't, if you're going to crush us, you're not going to get any more dollars. And realistically, because that's where they're going to crush free markets, they're going to crush the economy, and then who knows what we turn into after that. You're $33 trillion in debt.
Yeah.
And your generation, Matt, is going to have a sandwich you don't want to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all due to the fact that, the boomers, who are realistically the flower children of the 60s,
mm-hmm.
and the Xers, which is me, right? I got to take some responsibility for this, just don't care. I mean, you can't be at 33 trillion and talk like it's not a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yeah. I don't think people understand those sums of those numbers, how staggering they are. That
yeah,
I think I did the math actually. Yeah, thousands of years it would take. I think it was close to 9,000 years if you spent a $100 bill a second to get to what our national debt or what it's at right now.
Get all those crazy metrics on that, and that's
not even the liabilities, the stuff that can come back to really bite us in the future. That's like just a tangible right now, and the real liabilities, it's like 100 trillion, well over 100 trillion. Really, when you look at the potential liability of everything. It's numbers. I think once after it's a couple $100 billion, the average we just get bombarded with these numbers and we don't really take the time to think about the damage that's being done. Right. And then, borrowing money indefinitely. I mean, the financial strap on the next generation after me, because I guess I'm technically, at the very tail end of Gen X. So in some ways, I'm kind of in that same boat with you as well. It's going to be sad. I'm really hoping that generations come and clean up some of this mess behind us, even, or coming in the future, to kind of balance us back out. But I hope we don't go off a cliff before then, when we can't get back.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, people don't know, right? Yeah. So like my kids are in their 30s, and I can't sit here in all good conscience and say, oh well. That's just not the way I'm programmed. If I got a shot to go into the Senate to do something about it, I should take that shot. And if that means doing a balanced budget, which is going to be incredibly painful for everybody, right? That's the pain we got to take now. And the boomers and the Xers need to take that pain, right? You guys and my kids and everything, we need to try to remove as much of that debt as possible. Because if you think about it, if the United States government didn't have any debt, you'd get a revenue of $5 trillion a year, and you could fund whatever you wanted, right? All your environmental studies, whatever you believe in, would get funded. All the childcare would get funded, all this stuff. But it's not happening because of the irresponsibility of guys like Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi. I got to say, Mitch McConnell, too. I'm not a fan of that guy. He's been there too long, right? And Chuck Schumer. You have to remember, Joe Biden got in 72. The national debt was $700 million. $700 million, right? How do you, and Nancy Pelosi's in at 85, Schumer's in it at 99, and I think McConnell was in it at 87. They've had a hand in $33 trillion.
Yeah. And
they haven't thought twice about it. Yep. It's just that's their drug. They're trying to get the addicts away, So if we've got to take a very, it doesn't have to be a hard stance, but it's got to be reasoned and it's got to be pragmatic, right? Nobody needs to run around going, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I went to that Vivek Ramsworthy. I can't even pronounce his last name.
Yeah,
you know how you pronounce his last name?
Ramaswamy. Yep, Ramaswamy.
Ramaswamy. That's it.
It's a tongue twister.
The guy, I was curious. I went there and he gave a great speech for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and stuff like that. And I'd always said that the first whack at the government, it should probably come down by 25%. Entities being pulled out of it and retired. He said 75. I'm looking at him going 75%. But I understand why he says that, because he's a business guy. If your business is not running right, you go and you make the hard decisions and you let blood go out on the floor. The business will survive. So I was like, well, if he happened to be president, which I don't think he will, and I was in Congress, I'd meet him halfway at 50. I mean, that would be enough. It's just, it gets me fired up, as you can tell.
Yeah.
We need to do something smart. We need to be practical about it, and we need to get it under control as far as spending goes.
Yeah, and my opinion on the matter is that it's not uniquely like you said. You touched on, obviously a Republican in there, that both parties. I think it's because that even the Republicans aren't forced to pay, I guess you call it a political price for kicking the can down the road, because they've had not as big of a hand in it as the Democrats, for instance, but they're culpable, and it's because there's not a political or media price, I guess, to pay for it immediately. Like there is other hot button issues where they have to hold the Republican or conservative line. It just seems like allowing the debt to continue to increase, these horrible spending packages that they'll sometimes complain about, but then all of a sudden you see, even though we control the House of Representatives by a small margin, these omnibus bills that are in the works and getting shoved down our throats, they seem to be complicit because they're really not doing enough to stop it. So what are your plans with or a battle plan, or at least a philosophy on how to handle some of these even Republicans and to get along with them in Congress, assuming you get there, into the Senate? How are you going to kind of whip them into shape, or at least kind of force them in the right direction, or put pressure on them at least?
You have to go in. Who knows if they're even going to like me, right? Because I talk the way I talk, and that's just what you get. I would probably go in there and identify just what is waste and what is stupid spending, and say to them, how does this, on everything that they're lining up, just go, how does this get the debt? How does this resolve the debt? How does that do that? Because they're all going to sit there and say, well, it doesn't. And I'd be like, so you're willing to sit here and pile more debt upon people who can't afford it anyway, right? And you're willing to increase inflation and whatnot. I'd probably take that approach. I'd be nice about it for a while, but I mean, after that, I wouldn't be nice about it. I'd be like, and I'm not, in my business, we do deals all the time. I'm on the phone with banks all the time, trying to work out terms and things like that. So it's not unfamiliar to me. But there's times that you just stiffen up and just say, no, we don't do this now. You're not going to get whatever you think you're going to get out of me in the future. And being part of the Republican Party, great, right? But if the leadership and the Republicans are wrong, then they're wrong. And you got to call them out in front of everybody. When you do a conference behind closed doors, you'll hear me. I'll be like, I don't know what you guys are doing, right? I can go back to Nevada and I can show you people who are suffering from inflation. I can go back to Nevada and I can show you people who don't have anything in their houses. I can do and just try to goad them into, you've got to focus on the tax-paying citizen again. And it doesn't mean those who are in need and stuff get put aside. They don't. But if we're not making money, if people who are doing the grind every day and coming out with no cash in their pocket, waiting for Social Security so they can live some life in a small apartment somewhere and say, oh, well, that's just the way it goes before I die, that's pathetic. We need to get people wealthy again. We need to get them so they actually have a few dollars in their pockets. And both parties are guilty of this. Joe Biden's saying it now. We're going to build middle out or bottom upside down or whatever he's saying. Doesn't matter. It doesn't work, Joe. That's not what you're saying. You're saying you just want to sit there and create some kind of revenue stream for government, and then, oh, well, the taxpaying citizen got left on the side of the road again. I'm over it, right? And here's the thing, not being a politician, and if people want me to only run for one term, I'll do it. I will. I'll do it. If they're like, okay, we'll vote for you to get in, but you can only be in one term, I'll be like, okay, that's fine. I have no problem with that. I can come back and I'll be fine, right? I don't need the glory. I don't need any of that stuff. Some of these guys get in there and it's like, I don't know what happened to you.
They find their identity in it, right? And then it becomes their sacred cow, their idol, and the thought of losing it. And I think that's where some of these candidates, I guess, quote unquote, lose themselves, or when they get elected, is that after their first 6-year term turns into 12, turns into 18, and before you know it, we don't remember a time where these people weren't in office, like you touched on with the McConnells and the Bidens of the world. And then before you know it, that's their entire identity. And so along those lines, I know running for office, because I did it before, there's different pledges and things out there. One of them was like a term limits pledge. I remember signing it as as a candidate for state assembly here in Nevada. Ironically, it's something that's a little bit contentious in our own party, because I don't know if you've specifically read the latest Republican platform for the state party, which I mean, the platform itself on balance is legit. It's a very good platform if our actual elected officials were to abide by it. But one goofy part of it is that they say in there, we disagree or we do not support an Article 5 Convention of States. And for listeners or for anybody that might not know what that is, it's where the states can come together and basically change the Constitution, with a very sharp focus, though. And the main focus that's been out there has been for term limits, because we know if you got elected up there and you're okay with term limits in any way, shape, or form, you're definitely going to be an odd man out, because the people in there on both sides of the aisle, by and large, and the people that finance them, by and large, with the PAC money and all that stuff, they want their investment to pay off over decades. So with that said, I mean, would you have plans to kind of have that as part of your policy as well, or as part of your, to kind of encourage colleagues that, hey, after you've been here 12, 18 years, think about possibly stepping down and not running the next time around, so we don't get stuck in the mud like we do with these politicians lately.
Oh, yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, so say senators 2 terms, that's 12 years, right?
Yeah, that's plenty.
6 terms,
I think
6 terms with the Congress people, that's 12 years. I mean, that's probably the average time, a little more, but that somebody stays at a job, right? If they really like their job, you do 10 years, you're kind of, maybe there's something else to do. But I'd support that full throated.
Good.
I mean, why would you want to stay any longer? And I get it. Maybe it's the money, because they're grifting so much from whatever they're doing. Look, you can't. If the spirit is that you go there and you work for the people, so it's a constitutional republic, right? So, where they switch from working for the people to working for themselves, you got to find that moment. Yeah. And if it's 6 years, then they should be gone. If it's 12 years, then they should be gone after that. And because they do it, I don't think Nancy Pelosi was in there working for anybody but herself. No. She invoked the people of the United States all the time, but I can guarantee you, she's $270 million richer now. Somebody said Cortez Masto was $17 million richer.
Yeah, you can go up and down the whole list of almost all of them, right? I mean, how much they're financially better off after they're in there for a few terms. It's staggering, right?
I actually think that's one of the reasons why they hated Trump so much, because everybody says, well, he couldn't be bought, but also the fact is that when you can't be bought, then you can focus on one thing, and that's what Trump focused on. Was the health of America and the citizenry. Yeah. And I think because they were like, we got to find something on this guy, and they're not, right? Mm-hmm. We all know it's garbage, right? And they're not finding anything on him. It's upsetting the balance of power. Hopefully we can get him back, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying that because, oh, yay, Trump, right? I think he's best suited right now out of everybody who stands on that stage to get back there, because he's very familiar with them, with DC. And I think he'll clean that up faster now this time around. Right. And that's what I need to see.
Yeah. And I'm not under the illusion that he's a perfect man or a perfect conservative by any means. But like you said, when you have these these boxes are checked, not bound to any super mega corporate interests, you're your own man, you're authentic. Then he obviously would be the front runner. I mean, in my opinion, unless somebody else, can prove that. And sadly, I think the way the field has gone and the way the debates have gone, I mean, for the presidential election, I'm not incredibly encouraged by really anybody. I think Vivek says some good things, like you probably agree with a lot of what he says is true. But then there's there's saying and doing, and then we had a president before that actually proved that he could do a lot, although. In my opinion, sometimes he took some bad advice here and there and kind of ran a little bit too far with it. But on balance, I mean, that's the kind of, politicians or statesmen that I think the country needs. But like you said, oftentimes if you can't influence somebody with money and power, or someone who already has them both, which he does, tons of power, tons of money already. It becomes frustrating for the establishment. And it's sad to say that, because I really do believe in the principles of the Republican Party as far as, how they are in the social sphere and how their feelings on fiscal responsibility and smaller government. But now if we want to pivot, I kind of want to pivot our conversation with some other stuff, because I'd kind of be remiss if I didn't touch on some of the stuff going on in the international realm. I mean, obviously the relations between Ukraine and Russia, Israel and the Middle East. In your estimation and in your opinion, what do you see as the United States' role on the world stage when it comes to specifically probably these two issues, the Middle East and Israel issue, along with the Ukraine-Russia issue? Obviously, it's in the public sphere. We're going to be getting questions on it probably at the debate we're scheduling. So kind of wanted to hear your take on that, or at least some of your thoughts.
Well, first of all, I think a lot of people try to assign more authority to Senate candidates or even Congress people than what they actually have on these things. Right. You can come out and make a statement about it. That's about all you can do, right? You can vote whether you're going to send them money or not, and that's about all you can do. That's the extent of it. But as far as my opinion about it, I think what's happened. If I could rewind, get Mr. Peabody and Sherman in the Wayback Machine and rewind when the Ukraine war started, I probably would have encouraged the administration to take a stiffer approach to Western Europe, to forming some kind of line to get more involved. We're always too willing to get involved first, right? I
agree.
I would say, you guys go prove how bad this is, right? You Germany, you France, you Spain, you Poland, all you guys get together and you run over there to Ukraine and you prove how bad this is. Because it's a ground war and nobody's quite understood exactly what it's about, right? There's a whole bunch of reasons that people say that Russia invaded Ukraine. Some of it's in the Donbass. They're more Russian than they are Ukraine, and so he's trying to take that back. I think my take on it is that it's assets for minerals and mining and whatnot. There's probably a little bit of it because he is a old USSR guy that he wants to reconstitute that, right? But moreover, he's greedy. Okay, so if he can get a few more mines and a few more farms and a few more oil derricks his way, then I think he'd probably be satisfied with that. As far as the rest of it, as far as Ukraine goes and what ugliness is coming out on what international deals have been done over there, that'll flush out the way it is.
Yeah,
I'm curious because Trump makes the statement of, when I get elected, they'll be done in 24 hours. And I don't know what the leverage he has in it. But okay, we'll go for that, right? Because Biden has zero leverage. And they're not paying attention to him.
Yeah, anything Trump has is more than zero.
Yeah, you could almost make the statement, you know what, that'd almost be worth voting for Trump just to stop that before we all get into World War III. Right?
Yeah.
I think the Middle East, it's reminded me as when I was 7 years old and it was blowing up over there again. I don't think it's quite played out yet that anybody should have a real rational opinion on how that's going to go. I was so offended and at first I didn't believe it. I needed to know if it actually happened about the decapitation of infants, that I was like, that can't be. Who would do that? You can't do that. Well, apparently it's true, right? Mm-hmm. For me, that puts it at a whole different level. On Sunday, I went to a vigil for Israel at the Ahern Hotel in Las Vegas, right? And show our support and whatnot. And everybody who got up there and spoke kept calling Hamas barbarians. Well, they're worse than that. A barbarian, if you read John Stuart Mill's On Liberty, right, he talks about governing barbarians. You can govern barbarians as long as you're a benevolent dictator, right? And then when the barbarians get educated, they can then govern themselves, is essentially what he says. I don't think Hamas, I think calling them a barbarian is too nice.
Yeah.
I don't think these people could ever get into any place mentally, culturally, ethically, where you could say, okay, we're rehabbing him, right? You could even put them in the Hillary Clinton re-education camp. They're not going to do anything, right?
Not a chance.
Yeah. So some hard questions have to be asked about. Yeah, hard questions have to be asked about what are we going to do and how far are we going to go? Right. Because I was trying to find out exactly what the opinion was on where this all erupted, and actually Bill O'Reilly had a take on this and this seems more true to me than anything else, that Israel was going to sign another peace agreement or trade agreement with Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia and Iran are always at each other's throats. Mm-hmm. And Iran basically was like, I can't have this. You cannot have Israel being that solid with those countries, right? And because of Trump, everybody's like, okay, yeah, maybe we can all get along. And so apparently the Mujahideen went and triggered Hamas, and they'd been setting that up, and that attack on October 7th is a direct result of Iran going, nope, can't have this. So that's where it started over there. So you got to ask yourself, how far do you want to go into this, right? And all of a sudden you got Biden moving carrier force. He's got 3 carrier strike forces over there right now. What are you going to do? You're going to go bomb them. You're going to go put troops on the ground. 3,000 ground troops apparently were put up for this from the United States. This sounds like Vietnam all over again. And I don't know if that's the smartest way to go about this just yet.
Right. And I made the points before on a prior show that when we have so much that's leaving, because we're in a position as a country, first and foremost, our military, our commander-in-chief, they're the commander-in-chief, the military of the United States. And then you have to ask yourself, well, how are we positioned for possible attacks like this in the future? Because make no mistake, it's probably on the radar of these types of people, these extremists. And when you have a porous border like we have, when you have a central government by all metrics, when you take the executive branch especially, that cares very little for the security of our country, whether it's child sex traffickers pouring through, or who knows who's pouring through, bad actors, fentanyl, all these different bad things and not to mention, just even if everybody was very peaceable, you're having influxes of folks that are going to be dependent on the government almost from the jump, and extracting huge amounts of resources from us, oftentimes stuff that, money that we have to borrow from China or print it out of thin air or whatever we do. Is it even sustainable under the best moral circumstance possible? Are we even in a position? I liken it to, like, say you're running your household, right? And you have your home, your children, your wife that you're taking care of. No doubt on your street or in your community, somewhere in your city, there's families that probably are more hard up than you are. But can you take money out of your family's coffers to support them and leave yourself vulnerable and miss your own mortgage payments, get your car repossessed or not be able to pay your electric bill? That would be derelict. And the fact that we're able to borrow money at will or print money out of thin air, the government's taking a pass on that and just trying to spread us so thin. And then without a care in the world that we're leaving ourselves open for a very similar attack. So it just, to me, it doesn't pass the logic test. And it's not because we're not morally, or it's not the morally virtuous thing to do, because I think people in these situations deserve help. But are we in a position where we can really do that just based upon the numbers game and the fact that we don't have enough resources here to take care of ourselves?
Well, yeah, that's a big bite of the apple you just talked about. Yeah. Janet Yellen came out yesterday, I think it was, and was saying that, we have enough money to handle both, both fronts, and it's like, you're ridiculous. It is, it's ridiculous. When you talk about the southern border, that is, and 4-letter words want to start coming out in my diatribe on that.
Yeah.
The sex trafficking, I think there is an ethical duty just to close that down.
Absolutely.
And I don't even know for how long. You just stop it. You build that wall. You put troops on there, and you handle that way. And I wouldn't be making statements like that, but for the fact that it is that bad.
Yeah.
And I think when our government takes non-governmental entities goes into third world countries and encourages those people to walk thousands of miles or 500 miles or 750 miles or however long it takes them to get there, only so they can get raped and tortured and killed, on their way up there. That is a moral problem for the United States as a whole.
Yeah.
That I'm beginning to say, I think when Mayorkas is done, and if we get a Republican administration in there, somebody's got to take up on charges of aiding and abetting. It's not like they don't know that this is what happens, right? There has to be some responsibility on a criminal level for this to happen. And when Trump was in there, the news media was going crazy about kids in cages.
All right,
now they're
I remember.
dead. So don't tell me that when Trump was president that it was worse. It wasn't. It's worse now, and it's worse by 10 times to the power, right? And you can't close that down fast enough for me, and you can't close it down long enough. And when you do, the mainstream media, whoever is in charge of it, and it could be me, make me in charge of it, because I don't really care. Whoever does it is going to be vilified for the next 10 years, and the mainstream media, right? After that, historians will probably record it as that was the one thing that saved America. You'll be a hero, right? But you're not even, and besides all that, you're letting, God knows what you got coming across there. Every day I see, here's 1,000 guys of fighting age, Muslims. Here's a guy, and I'm not saying all Muslims are bad. I'm saying, hey, Allah Akbar means, God is great. And that's just before they start killing Christians and Jews.
Yeah. I
Come
mean,
on, guys.
It's really crisis level. I mean, we're planning a flight here in the near future, and then we're looking at all of the restrictions, and you're asking people, oh yeah, you can't pass certain checkpoints with liquid or snacks that you bring from home. TSA is going to throw them out. And then you're just looking at how bizarre that is, right? Like, okay, well, they're going to throw away my kids' Cheez-Its, but they're going to but they just have the border open for 1,000 people, and all they have to say is, asylum, okay, here's your hearing in 8 years that you're never going to go to. You can come on in, and here's some bus fare and a hotel, and here's some benefits, and have your baby in our hospitals, like whatever it is. It's just kind of, it screams of unfair, and it's like crisis level. And that brings us back to the media at large, derelict in their duties is probably putting it mildly, right? I mean, on balance, when you look at cable news and network news and print media, if they really gave us in the public, if they gave us the actual hard news, real news, I think America, no matter what your political persuasion is, would be just enraged, kind of like we are. And it's a sad indictment that many people just either it's not important to them, or the media is just doing such a horrible job. It's not on anyone's radar.
Yeah, I think the media, before Trump got in, I think what was happening while we were all asleep at the wheel was the media was actually becoming part of the government. We didn't see it happening. Right. I think media actually influenced government policy, where you get these people in corporate media go, oh no, we need to do this to make government look good. Doesn't matter who you penalize, which would be the taxpayer, but we need to do this to look good. We need to go help, over in these other countries and things like that. My feeling is now, looking back on it, then the reason why the media so vilified Trump or anybody, whereas they are vilifying Republicans now, is because they have been caught. They have been the ones, man, they were giving money or baseball tickets to FBI agents and things like that. They were going up into our representatives' place and handing them cash. To do what? To do so the media could go get a story that they prove true? I mean, it's ridiculous, So anybody who opposes them, anybody who wants to get things done that actually benefits America, is weirdly going to be seen not in a very great light. And I said the other day, they're going to call me some kind of ist or ism or phobic or whatever it is. And I was like, well, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, somebody made the statement, oh, white people are born racist. And I'm like, it's beyond stupid now. It's just, and racism is a term that doesn't mean anything anymore. Right?
Yeah, when it's overused, when it's used for every possible situation, how are you going to tell what's really, really racist?
Every white person's racist now. It's like, okay, so nobody's racist. right?
Yeah. And then
If we're all born racist, then nobody's racist.
Yeah. It's like if someone, it's like the other side or whoever just calling out fire, fire, fire. And then pretty soon you tune it out and it's a false, you're thinking it's a false alarm, false racism just devalues the whole term. I mean, I don't think any of us really think that racism's ever been fully eradicated, but I mean, we both have been around for a long time. And I remember growing up as a kid, in the being bused to certain schools and then other people being bused toward our school and this and that. But we had relative, and racism wasn't eradicated, don't get me wrong, but didn't it seem like we didn't have this issue of just divisive groups pitted against one another? And I don't know if you want to blame the politicians more, the media more, or the culture or the sports world, but sure as heck seems like we have problems that we almost had gotten past in the past decades, and they're just for the past, I think, maybe 15, 20 years, hyperdrive again, right?
Yeah, I was trying to figure this out, right? Because like you grow up, you go through life. Because I'm 58, I've seen it all. I've been around the world a couple times, right? And I'm not understanding where all this is coming from. And some of it I get, and you're absolutely right. Racism has not been eradicated, probably to the extent that we want it. So I picked up that Critical Race Theory book, right? And I read it. And what that showed me was that people want to have conflict, and racism is now really a wedge. This was an idea started by a guy named Derek Bell back in the 50s, kind of got some legs in the 60s, but it didn't work in the 60s because people were like, that's not a wedge. We're all getting along, that sort of thing. Then we go to the 70s and 80s, and it's cycling back around. Well, people who want to use it as a wedge now, remember Joe Biden's from the 60s, right? They picking this notion back up, and they're trying to use it as a wedge again to separate people. Yeah. And, that goes into systemic racism. You get all these terms and stuff that you just sit back and go, where did this come from? Right. And even if I make that statement, people are going to look at me and go, oh, well, you don't understand because you're white. Okay. But I can't intellectually get to where I need to get, if you show me evidence on how you get there. I mean, I can do critical thinking. Right. So it's, how do we get off on that?
Well, I don't know.
It's being used as a wedge issue, it is. True. It's just being used as a wedge issue. And when those things happen, then all of a sudden the topic itself is not going to be taken as seriously as really is what it should, when there really is racism.
Yeah, because I think like when you talked about CRT, the critical race theory, and I know not the college course, the intellectuals on the left always want to say, well, there's no CRT in our schools. It's a college level course, but we're talking about, okay, and I'm like, okay, you dopes. We're not talking about the actual college class, but the principles of that ideology permeating our schools. And used primarily as a tactic to divide, and it's not only one-sided, because when you're telling an ethnic minority child or somebody that's not quote unquote in the privileged white people, you're telling this person that they are inherently not as advantaged or have all these lost opportunities or not good enough to excel in a country like ours. How damaging is that to those kids, right?
You think it makes them, makes them give up before. Yeah, why try? Mm-hmm. And that's really the crime. There is like when you say something. It's one thing to say, hey, everybody's got a different starting line, and you got to make what you got to finish wherever you finish, right? Some people start way behind me. I get it. It's up, and those people sometimes finish way ahead of me, right? And a lot of it's merit-based, a lot of it's luck, a lot of it's opportunity sought, all those things. But you're absolutely right. If you get people, in particularly minorities, telling them that, oh, don't worry, you're not gonna do it. Why are they even gonna try? They're just gonna sit back and go, yeah, I know why, and they're gonna start mimicking the same things that they were told.
And blaming other categories of people and just being unfortunately a pawn in a political game where they can be enslaved to vote a certain way because those people on that side are the ones who we should vote for. They sympathize with me and my plight and my victimhood, so I'm gonna be on that. Yeah, and sadly, most common sense Democrats, I would say, because I came from a family of Democrats, actually, my dad and my mom, but it's almost like their party right now doesn't care about that type of Democrat. They're perfectly fine with either trying to import them in over the border, indoctrinate new people. It used to be college, right? That's where you had to worry, oh, my kid's going to get a liberal professor and they're going to change. But now it's
what's he going to learn there?
Yeah, they're getting them at age 5 now. I mean, really, that's what they're going for.
Yeah.
They're going for the kindergartners and the first graders.
Yeah, it's amazing. I do feel, though, that the pendulum may be about ready to swing back. You know, I get so I saw somebody had a graph, and it was months ago, but they was talking about per capita income earners, and it wasn't white guys, you know, or white people at all. It was Asians, and it was people from the continent of India. And the things that they had in common was education and a strong culture towards education and family. Right?
Yep.
Per capita, they're really smoking everybody, right, including the white race in America. So that gives me hope. And I mean, I was telling my kid about it. I go, bring it on, competition, love it, right? Don't hate those people for it whatsoever. You should have a strong culture. You should have a strong family. Right. You should have a strong educational background and the desire to get where you need to be. They keep succeeding on that level. The whole notion of people being held down by another race is going to go away.
Right.
So it may take a few generations, but that plays directly into the free markets and the capitalistic society of America. Sure. You can make it here, right? A lot of people fail. Everybody's got bumps and bruises, me included. You can make it here. So
yeah, isn't that amazing? You see some you know, some of the Looney Tunes on the far left, you know, demonizing our country, saying that we're, you know, what a terrible country we are, and then you got tens of thousands of folks just chomping at the bit, doing whatever they can. Yeah. Like you said, they're actually renting out their children or bringing children to kind of make the process easier to enter, putting their kids in harm's way, doing crazy things, you know, paying coyotes thousands upon thousands of dollars that they probably saved just to get the chance to be here, just crawling into our country, however they can get here, for such a, you know, if the country's really that bad, how could almost everybody outside of our country still wants to, and that's what also gives me hope that we're not completely lost, because if we really were, you know, DOA and we've expired and we have no more, it's just that now a low glass ceiling that we can't get, you know, the average person can't get through, you know, why are people still, you know, clawing to get here? So we're not at that point yet, but like you said, I think maybe we're about to turn a corner, because I think when people have had enough, people have had enough, that's when their voting changes, that's when they mobilize, and that's where they demand change from their government. And let's just hope that we hit that point sooner than later, you know, because
I'm with you on that.
Every time I think we're about there, I'm like, oh, it's getting a little worse. You know, maybe we haven't had enough yet.
Well, now we'll see in the next couple election cycles. This election cycle is really important.
It is.
I mean, now I can't stress, and I'm starting to stress. I'm telling people, you got to vote a straight Republican ticket. You have to. I know a lot of people try to vote a straight Republican ticket, but maybe they kind of know maybe that Democrat guy over there in that position, and they kind of like him or her or whatever. Can't do it now. There's no friends in this election whose jobs need to be saved. It's that bad. Yeah. You got to vote straight Republican, because the mindset has got to be switched completely across the executive branch and the legislative branch. It's just gotta happen.
Yeah, let's hope it gets there sooner, like this cycle, and we can get there, because like I said, every cycle you've heard it, right? Well, this is the most important election of our lives. I think we actually heard that probably for the last couple cycles, but I mean, this time I really honestly believe it's so important that
we're not joking now.
It's that last stop before, like, you know, Wile E. Coyote goes over the canyon. I think we're there. So let's hope we can get this ship back. Before we kind of wind it down here, because I know we're coming close up on an hour, but I wanted folks to know of a way to get to know a little bit more about your campaign or contact information, or the best way to connect with you. Either social media, website, or whatever. Did you care to kind of share that with some of the listeners?
Yeah, go to nvsenateseat.com. That's the website. Okay. My links to my social media are down right now. They're going to be up this weekend, so let me get to the weekend, probably Sunday, to get them all up. I wasn't sure that if they were working the way I want them to work. I also write on Substack, right? And I just, oddly enough, I try to write So it's a minute to 2 minute reads. And I just put one out about the Statue of Liberty and immigration. And it was pretty amazing when I found it. And I'll just tell you because it's that quick. The Statue of Liberty was not given to us so people could say, give us, you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry, you're needing to breathe free. That wasn't the point of sending the Statue of Liberty to the United States. The Statue of Liberty was sent to the United States by France as a way to show the rest of the world that the rest of the world needs liberty, right? So, and I make this analogy, I'm like, if you look at the face of the Statue of Liberty, it is not soft, it is not warm, it is not come gather inside in my house and huddle with me, right? There's nothing soft about that face. Instead, it's determined, it's a protector kind of face. And the reason it is that way is because she's saying to the rest of the world, as she takes a step out towards New York Harbor, I'm coming with liberty. Liberty has to be spread across the world. And you have to remember the poem that went on there on the book was put in there after 1939 during World War II, right, over in Europe, as a way to say, hey, refugees, you can come here. It wasn't the intent. The intent was to spread liberty. It was given to us around 1865 after the Republicans freed the slaves. And so what the Democrats have done is they keep using this as a hammer against us. Like, don't you have a big enough heart? I got plenty of heart. That's not what that symbol's about, right? The Atlantic wrote an article on it before 1939 talking about how it's a protector of the portal for people who want liberty. You're not allowed in this country unless you promise not to abuse liberty, right? You're going to get the liberty, you're going to get the freedoms that you want. She's there judging you. You better come here and be the American citizen that you need to be. We don't have that now. We just bring people in and there's your culture. You didn't try to assimilate. There's no melting pot.
Right.
Before then, I'm going to tell you right now, that to me, when I was reading up on all this stuff, and it's just a 2 minute read, I just make it succinct. The whole thing about Statue of Liberty, the way she has the demeanor that she has, she's a protector. She's not asking people to come in. She's like, I need to go out and spread liberty around the world. There's that.
Absolutely. I agree. I think sometimes that's the thing. You take a little bit of truth and mix it with a little bit of exaggeration or a lie, and then before too long, the other side can kind of manipulate the whole entire essence of what it was meant to be. Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I'll repeat that website one more time. So it's nvsenateseat.com to reach it. nvsenateseat.com. You can type in your email address. I've just been ramping up kind of now. I filed my paperwork earlier, but I had a little bit of a tragedy in the family, so I had to deal with that for about a month and a half or two. And so now is when I'm really coming out for it. So leave me your email address. If you can donate, right? I haven't really asked anybody for donations yet. I'm actually going to start it after I come out and do the debate with you, and then I plan on flipping it into high gear. Right, yeah.
I'm putting out stuff.
Yeah, and I want to compliment you for getting back and being very professional about it. You're one of a handful of people. I mean, there's been some very professional. Some of your opponents were actually as courteous as you. Some of them, unfortunately, not. But we want to make sure we acknowledge you, that you're organized and you really want to connect with the voters. And that's the important thing, because I think a lot of times the money in politics, or some people or the establishment, when they kind of unofficially choose a candidate here or there, I think the candidates are losing touch with the fact that you got to go out there and earn the vote. You got to go out there and spread your message. And I appreciate you coming out to Pahrump, Nye County. I know it's much smaller than Las Vegas, but I always tell folks that, I was born and raised in Vegas, but it's kind of a bellwether for the whole rural portion of our state, right? To where, we're kind of a little conduit, a little kind of intermediary between the two worlds, the urban Las Vegas area and then the rest of the state. It's kind of like two states mixed in one, and we're kind of that dichotomy out here in Nye County, and we're looking forward to it. And for any of you listeners and viewers that want to show up to the debate here at the Bob Roode Center, locally here in Pahrump on Basin and 160, Barry Lindemann and hopefully other candidates will want to show up earlier, kind of like Barry's going to be doing, to meet you. You might have a chance to ask some other pointed questions or get to know a little bit more about candidates like Barry. So hopefully we'll see you there, an hour or two early or whatnot, before the debate, and get a chance to chop it up a little bit more. Had a really good time having you on today. time permitting in the future. I know it's early in the election cycle. It happens earlier in Nye County, in case you're wondering why we kind of got aggressive with having a debate out here. But people have politics on the radar about the time you started filing, probably in the summer. People are already thinking about the election cycle. So appreciate you kind of getting on the ground floor with us out here in Nye County. I know it's a long road. So, again, thank you for being a good guest today and enlightening our audience. And without further ado, I think we'll kind of wrap it up because we're approaching that 1 hour mark for radio here.
Yeah,
so,
we are.
I appreciate you, Barry.
Yeah, I appreciate the time and thank you so much. And everybody show up for that debate. I'll show up early. I'm not afraid of questions. So I may not know it all, but we'll figure it out. So
Amen
Matt, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. My best to you and your family.
All right. Thanks again on behalf of Barry Lindemann and the Nevada Patriot Podcast. God bless you and have a good day. You got it.
Election day is around the corner, and you'll soon have a million choices to make at the ballot box. But right now, your number one choice for freedom is a no-brainer. It's Matt Sadler with a Hope Bail Bond. Choose Matt Sadler for your Nevada bail bondsman. Matt Sadler has been your number one local bail agent 3 years running. Nye County. Let's keep Matt Sadler in his office. For the best way out of jail, call 442-BAIL. He's Matt Sadler, and he approves your freedom. Thank you for listening. Tell a friend and join us next time. After you catch your breath, check out the NevadaPatriot.com for more content, advertising opportunities, and to give listener feedback. That website again is the NevadaPatriot.com. Until next time, Patriots, stay American.